I wrangled 20 fourth graders at a bowling alley for 2 hours. I can literally do anything. You really find out who your friends are when you declare a national emergency. It's true. It's the lesson that Donald Trump is learning right about now. Trump, you'll remember, maybe you won't remember, but you will now, declared a national emergency on the United States southern border on February 15th, and said Trump of his emergency declaration, quote,
"It's been signed many times before. It's been signed by other presidents. From 1977 or so, it gave the presidents the power. There's rarely been a problem. They sign it, nobody cares. I guess they weren't very exciting."
And Trump is sort of right. Presidents have been declaring national emergency since there have been presidents. Franklin Delano Roosevelt declared a national emergency in 1933 that allowed him to close all the banks in the country on a single day to avoid them going bankrupt in the heart of the Great Depression. Harry Truman declared a national emergency in 1950 to deal with the conflict in Korea. And in 1970, Richard Nixon declared an emergency in the face of a postal strike, which allowed him to assign National Guardsmen to deliver the mail, which is an underrated story that I would like to read a book about. By the mid-1970s, there was all sorts of confusion and controversy over when a president could declare a national emergency and what special powers doing so gave to him. Enter Congress. Sometimes fixes problems, like, I guess, way back in the past. This time they passed the National Emergencies Act in 1976 to essentially codify what a president can and should do in the face of an urgent crisis in which they need all of the tools of the federal government at their disposal. So since 1976, presidents have used the National Emergency Declaration relatively sparingly. Jimmy Carter only issued one national emergency. He did it to deal with Americans that were being kept hostage in Iran. Now, his successor, Ronald Reagan, declared 6 national emergencies. George Herbert Walker Bush, only 4. Now, Bill Clinton holds the record with 17 national emergency declarations during his 8 years in the White House. George W. Bush, Barack Obama each racked up about 12 emergency declarations each. Now, the vast majority of all of these national emergency declarations were in service of putting sanctions in place against bad actors across the world, whether that was Lebanon, Syria, the Congo, or a whole bunch of other places. And the one thing all of those national emergencies had in common was that they had broad bipartisan support in Congress. Now, whether they were in response to some urgent need or were part of a broader pressure campaign being brought to bear against a country, these measures rarely even drew the attention of Congress or much of any news coverage. But Trump's decision to declare a state of emergency on the southern border is then rightly understood as the major exception to that rule. It came after months of back and forth with congressional Democrats over how much money, if any, they would approve so that Trump could build his wall on the country's southern border. Now, when talks between the two sides broke down, we got a 35-day long government shutdown, the longest in American history. But even when the government reopened, there was no border wall funding deal to be had. So rather than shut down the government again, Trump decided to declare a national emergency, which allows him to take money Congress has already approved for other purposes and direct it to his wall and its first phase $5 billion price tag. Now, Congress, as you might guess, didn't love that idea, since deciding how the federal government spends its money is the legislature's business. It's right here. There's a constitution back there, but it's in there, trust me. So the Democratic House majority introduced a resolution to reverse the national emergency declaration.
Well, we are not going to give any president, Democratic or Republican, a blank check to shred the Constitution of the United States. We would be delinquent in our duties as members of Congress if we did not overturn what the president is proposing.
That speech worked because the resolution passed the House with 245 votes, including 13 Republicans who sided with their Democratic colleagues. And that was when things got really interesting. See, because this is what's called a privileged resolution, it means that the Senate can't just ignore it. Why? Don't ask why. The rules of Congress are harder to understand than Rob Kardashian's fame. Actually, probably not that hard, but still difficult. Which puts Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell in a major pickle. And yes, that is a technical term. Because if 51 senators vote for the resolution, then it goes to President Donald Trump's desk. And that appears to be exactly what is going to happen. Democrats hold 47 seats in the Senate. all of them are expected to vote for the resolution. So that's 47. And over the past few weeks, a quartet, 47 plus 4 equals 51, of Republican senators, Rand Paul, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, and Tom Tillis, have said they will vote for the resolution too. And it honestly seems likely more Republicans will follow that lead, citing concerns that if Trump can declare a national emergency to get his wall built, then Democratic presidents could do the same to, say, pay for a plan to, eliminate climate change. So in early March, McConnell sounded basically resigned to losing this resolution vote.
What is clear in the Senate is there will be enough votes to pass the resolution of disapproval, which will then be vetoed by the president, and then in all likelihood, the veto will be upheld in the House.
And he's right. And that's the strange thing about all of this. If I'm being honest, when the Senate passes the resolution to end the national emergency, Trump has already said he will veto it. And it would be some history. It would be the first veto of Trump's presidency. So Trump vetoes it. Then Congress would need 2/3 votes in the House and the Senate to overturn that presidential veto. And that is just not happening. The votes just aren't there. They're not even really close to there. So Trump will get the money for his wall. But Congress will have made clear in the process that they don't like it. And they think it opens Pandora's box for every future president. And they will be exactly 100% correct. And that is the point. We make new Point episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. Make sure to check them all out.